Welcome to the Foundational Infrastructure Working Group. Ansh, do you have anything you want to discuss? Add to the agenda or not?
Two things actually. One main thing. So I got to know that Joseph, you are leaving Broadcom soon. So we were worried about what happens with the pipelines, and we wanted to also get a more better understanding of how to operate them if needed, and where are they located, how to get access, and all of that. And if there's uh, uh, any other important task which normally you take care of, which can be shared by us.
Um, I mean, you still got Ruben in this meeting. For
Uh,
now, though, who knows? Who knows what Ruben's
yeah.
doing? Because he's not working on Bosch stuff for Broadcom, but he is still at Broadcom.
Yeah.
And then they're looking on our team. I mean, we've got a team of people right now that is going to be shrinking in size, but they're all working on Bosch or Bosch adjacent things and constantly looking at those pipelines. I'm the I'm the public face of that team right now,
Yeah.
but they're talking about ideally having somebody else backfill to this meeting, just so there's context kept up. But
Yeah.
pipelines and stuff are fine. I think all of the foundational pipelines that we can easily move to open source, we have. The ones that we haven't moved are because they need like Azure, like the Azure CPI hasn't moved because we don't have an Azure account in the foundation that we use easy access to. That's like a solvable problem. Um, like the Bosch agent hasn't moved because it's got Windows tests. We don't have any Windows workers in the foundation. And then OpenStack, which I think our OpenStack finally infrastructure is up again. Hooray. But that one's because there's an OpenStack. So we need a
Yeah.
OpenStack. But yeah, and for the most part, even if my whole team disappears and goes away, like all the pipelines are, in the repos, much more standardized and documented than they have been in the past. So we've been cleaning things up over the last few years. So I think there's nothing in theory to worry about with me disappearing other than I just won't be here. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's still, yeah, you got Aaron, Brian, and Chris,
As well for Jean
Rajan,
and
Rajaf,
Maya.
Maya. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so there's at least a decent number of people.
Okay, but we were really worried about what happens when Joseph leaves. So
Oh.
Just have a
I don't do
dog
that
with
much.
Joseph
I
just
just
makes a
complain
lot
about
of
stuff.
noise. Yeah, just a lot of
Very
noise, not a
loud.
lot of. Yeah, that will be a lot quieter. But
At least half my
uh,
PRs are me fixing things that I broke in a previous PR.
but who's gonna fix all the PRs that you made recently?
You guys got to figure that out.
so you're completely leaving the org, also not planning to work on in the org, or just .com.
I'm leaving Broadcom and probably won't be working on Bosch stuff in my future job.
Okay.
Completely different sort of stuff. Most likely. Don't have that yet, but
I hope you enjoy it as much
yes.
as you
Yeah.
enjoyed in Bosch. Yeah.
Yeah. Bosch is great. You get to work on something that I see help our customers because they're, the number of apps they run just goes like up and to the right because
Yeah.
their app developers love it. You get to work on something that's open source. You get to work on
Yeah.
something that's a really cool technology. So I'm gonna miss all the pieces of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, will be greatly missed. What was the other topic?
The other one was about the PR from Dennis, but we can talk about also towards the end.
Yeah, when we get to PRs, which is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over this.
Urge.
There's two approvals. Do we want
Three
to
approvals.
discuss what this is about? Oh, three, yes.
It's about the boot time. So you have the selection screen with
Mm-hmm.
the drop, and default is 30 seconds. And apparently we never changed that to
This is on Jammy?
yes,
We've been waiting an extra 25 seconds for VMs to boot.
apparently.
Oh no. Great news. Huge performance improvement we've discovered.
Yeah.
That's great. That explains why containers are so much faster to boot.
I was blaming the IaaSes.
Yeah, me too. Nice.
The only thing is we should also merge this for Noble.
Yeah. Which will
Is there
probably be
already PR or not?
There is
we've been doing merge forwards for this rather than cherry picking, duplicating PRs. That way we get all the stuff, not just the things we think about. Which the repo is getting better at that. It's not perfect yet, but you know, the last merge was a harder one because we renamed all the files. You know, we got rid of Jammin Ubuntu or Jammin Noble from all the files, so there were some conflicts there. But going forward, I think there's going to be conflicts every time because you have all of the base OS meta links in both that like conflict. But you just sort of ignore those and take the latest from the branch you're actually merging into. And ideally, we just make that a concourse resource at some point and get it out of the repo.
Makes sense.
We met our KPIs for this year, improving the boot time by factor.
Due to much complicated engineering work.
Yeah, it's really extreme.
I think we should actually go to
everything.
we should go to 15 instead of 5, so we have further room for improvement.
Yes.
We can also do it like increments of every year, 5 seconds.
Yeah, then if we got a new stem cell line, we can start with, I don't know,
We can start
10
over. We can
minutes,
just
right?
put
And
it
we
back to
can
30 again. and we can
gradually.
then-
Yeah. Yeah. This one needs another review. Ramon, are you gonna look at it?
I don't have stem. I don't know anything about stem build, so if you want to look me to take a look at it, it's fine. But
Oh, Aram already looked at it. Just glance it over. It's fine.
Fun fact, nobody uses the makefile anyway, even the pipelines. They have a secret different makefile.
yeah, then just accept the thing. I think we already talked about it like last week.
Shall we just merge it?
Yeah,
I
just
think
merge
nobody cares
Yeah.
enough.
It's mostly removing bad things that can potentially cause harm if somebody did try to use the makefile. Specifically, GCS CLI 006 from a bucket that we don't own anymore.
I don't think you can even download the artifact anymore. I think the whole thing is deleted.
The bucket?
Yeah, I think the whole bucket is deleted.
The bucket's deleted, and then somebody started squatting on the bucket and made a whole security article about how we're doing bad things because they can inject things into our process.
Okay.
It's great. But really, if you're building stem build from the make file, like, you deserve bad things.
So this was approved by. Okay, yeah, it was approved.
Oh, I got to resolve conflicts. I'll do that right now.
Okay. That was this one? Wait, now I'm confused.
Release property validation.
Yeah, okay.
So this was the one I wanted to talk about. So basically, Dennis wants to introduce a generic tagging of the stem cells also across CPIs. And there was a problem with like backward compatibility of what happens with the director call, the call that director makes with CPI versions which do not support such a property. And there was a solution which we discussed internally. So we could work out something similar to set disk metadata and set VM metadata. So there's this metadata updater class in the bosh director, and this metadata is set. So these methods in many CPIs also are a no-op, and they simply throw a not implemented error. So for the versions ahead in the CPI, we could have such an implementation CPI specific, and for the versions before, maybe we handle these errors coming out of CPIs in a different way. So we would expect not only this not implemented error, but maybe something else in a Ruby-based implementation or something else in Go-based implementation. Figure this out and handle this, or
Yeah,
do a
go ahead.
version-based check.
Yeah, don't we have like CPI API version for that?
So exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you go at the last comment, that is basically the two. So one way is we are anyway getting, or it seems that we might get into a new CPI version for the IPv6 topic. So not this one, the last comment from my side. So basically, we could, in principle, introduce this on the version 3 of
here,
the,
this one.
yeah, exactly this one. So we could basically wait for the IPv6 and have a version 3 which includes the tagging, or is that we put an empty hash on all the other CPIs, because we will not have the capacity to implement it in all these repositories basically, and which would do nothing, and it will only work on AWS.
Yeah, but then
It's-
you tie versions. I mean,
I
and
mean,
it only works if you have newer versions of CPIs, right?
So basically, it's a create stem cell API change with a third parameter. The third parameter is just like an options parameter with a hash, which can be anything inside.
Mm-hmm.
In this hash, we can have tags as one parameter of it, and that we will only implement in AWS CPI. And for all the other CPI, it will just be an empty hash that we put by default on all the CPIs without doing any implementations behind. In principle, we could do that, and then it's available already on version 2, but then we have this ugly version, ugly hash, which is not doing anything, unless, of course, people are interested in using it. Or the other way is that, I mean, that way will make it better or faster into our product, so that's good for us. But the other way is we will have it as part of the version 3 if we are anyway going with a version 3 for the IPv6 topic. Because here in my link is we were discussing in the other RFC that we might end up anyhow with a new CPI version for AWS.
So there's no technical reason not to have a version 3 and then a version 4 for IPv6. Because the director just is just checking like, oh, are you greater than or equal to, 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever. So if so, I'm going to do this versus that. The only downside about revving the version so frequently is it means that like if IPv6 comes and somebody's like, I want to do IPv6 on my CPI, it's like well, that means you have to do whatever was changed in version 3 also, which isn't like terrible.
Yeah.
It
Because
just
it
means that
could
you're
be an
getting,
empty hash, right?
yeah. It just means that you have to support all the changes when you bump the CPI version of your CPI. So,
And we are controlling all the CPIs mainly, right? Like, so.
and this isn't a breaking thing of the CPI. Like if you bump the version, then the director's like, oh, you're still version 2? Well, then I'm not going to send you the empty hash because I know you don't want it.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, at the end, the empty hash, the director. So it depends which proposal now you're talking about. So if you're talking about the CPI version, yeah, it will not send the empty hash.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we are now talking about you reusing the same version, where we have a third optional parameter, which is an empty hash by default, then we don't care. The only
Yeah, I mean, that
ugly
one
point
does.
of view is that you send it from the director side and it only works on AWS. That's the
Right.
only
Well, and if you're trying to run a new Bosch director that sends that empty hash with an older CPI, it's going to blow up with that empty hash.
Yeah.
So it's effectively bumping the version without actually bumping the version. It's like you have to be using a CPI that has had this change.
No, the director. No, I mean that's the point. We could just put an empty hash on all the CPIs. So we are
No,
basically
but
changing.
no, yeah, but you're assuming everybody's using Bosch deployment, and probably everybody is, maybe. But like in
Go troll through
theory,
the Slack channel and see all the people who
yeah, like that's the point, right? Like people might be bumping their director in a different pace than the CPIs, right? So we cannot assume that that's a thing we can do. Right. So doing it through the
If that's
CPI
something that
version is better.
if that's something that we assume that we can do, we can just get rid of CPI version. It's like you got to use the latest of everything and they all work together and we sort of guarantee that. But the CPI version is there to solve problems like this, where it's like we want to make a breaking change in the API and we don't want to force everybody to bump everything at the same time, even though that's maybe that's not necessarily a requirement of the world, because I don't know. There are some third-party CPIs, in fairness, the Ollie Cloud. Uh, I don't know who maintains that, but I don't think it's anybody in this call.
Yeah. And it's also like coordinating the releases of all these things, right? They all need to go through CI at the same pace. And so it's not just doing it with a version is better, right? Bumping the version and do it gracefully.
There is another option which doesn't require version change, which is just put this in cloud properties, right? But then it's
Do we
like
pass
not,
cloud properties to stem cells though?
oh, we don't, do we?
I don't
Create
know.
stem
That's what I had the same thought and I was like, are we doing
I
that?
also thought about it, but yeah,
Create stem cell currently takes.
I mean, it could, because it could be reused in all YAS providers, right? I mean, it's not a YAS specific feature, I assume. It's just
Right,
we don't
yeah.
have the capacity
Well,
to implement it everywhere. That's the
yeah,
only thing.
you say it's not an IaaS specific feature, and then you go look at how all the different IaaSs do different insane things with tagging. Right now, there is a lot of tagging, and it's all stored in cloud properties because it's all just mostly nonsense. That's not true. There's one tag field in like runtime configs or something insane, or cloud configs. But yeah, so
We
like
have
I think
global
it's
tags,
better. Sometimes some CPIs have them in cloud properties. Tagging is just a mess everywhere. I do think this is better as a first class property, and then CPIs should do it if they can.
We have
But
this here, deployment tags.
yes, that is one of the like 9 things that where tags can go in the Bosch world. But a bunch of CPIs have them in cloud properties, and then they do different things with them, and they mean different things in different IaaSs.
And basically, we are reusing these tags, I think, and we are just propagating it further to the stem cell.
Yeah.
So we are reusing this tags block, but we just want to propagate it.
You do have cloud properties within create stem cells, so you could do it in there. I do think that doing, the harder, bigger change is making it a first class CPI parameter, bumping the version, bumping the CPIs, doing all that work. It's gonna be, more work rather than like, because if you put it in cloud properties, you don't even need to change the director. It's just like, oh wait, you don't even need to change the director. But like, yeah, then you're not making the whole like, you're making tags worse.
Which cloud properties get passed to the stem cell then?
Nobody knows. Some of them do, but you can put it somewhere. It's probably
right now,
in the
there's
stem cell
nothing.
block.
In AWS, there's nothing, at least. So we are doing this because it's a mess in our environment. We are having hundreds of stem cells where we don't know what do they belong to.
Yeah, nothing's coming through now, but like in your manifest, no doubt you can declare cloud properties for a stem cell somewhere, and you could have those flow through. But so you wouldn't have to change the Bosch director, you'd have to change your deployment manifest and the CPI. But it's not the great solution. Like putting it in cloud properties, like
Papa is het bellen, je kan hier niet komen.
You inverted your mute. We were very confused.
Okay. So you think pumping the CPI is a better approach?
I think that starts to clean up tags. Tags are a mess, and putting them into cloud properties makes it a bigger mess.
Yeah, that would be my. Yeah, I mean, also, I really don't like that we don't have an options property, because I mean, it makes sense. You might want to pass some more options to the create stem cell, not only for tags, but maybe for other reasons. I don't know, because right now it's no way to enhance this create stem cell without having its options parameter.
Yeah, which is maybe a good thing to make, rather than a tags field, an options hash here, so that we can expand it easier without having to. Although then Sending extra stuff in the options hash is never harmful, I don't think. I don't think any CPI is going to be angry about additional hash properties. So, I mean, they have to deal with that already for cloud properties because they never know what they're going to get there.
So the next thing would be, do we then try to combine to the IPv6 topic so we don't generate many versions?
Generating versions, we've only done it twice, but it's not hard and it's not complicated. So really, I think it depends upon when you want it and yeah. Unless anybody else has any thoughts on revenue. The hardest part of changing the version is going to be updating the Bosch.io CPI versions docs to because right now it's like these are all the V1 and these are all the V2 and it's like a superset. So it's like, do we have everything for V3 or do we just have the changes? Somebody's got to figure out what to do with the docs. But like that's literally the hardest part is just figuring out what to do with the docs.
But
Otherwise, it's just an arbitrary number in the code.
Pumping the version, that means we keep only the latest version. We don't have the versions.
In the docs or in the code?
The code and releasing.
The code, so the code is just a check that the director does. Every time the director calls the CPI,
I mean on the CPI side, for example, if we bump the version and
it doesn't matter really. There's a wrapper. There's a wrapper around the CPI in the CPI implementation, and this wrapper checks for the past API version that you put in the manifest when you were adding the CPI. Sorry, not the manifest, this wrapper.
If you update the CPI but do not update the director, then
the CPI will still have to. The CPI will have to assume that the third argument is optional. The director is always doing a greater than check. So the director's like, hey, are you greater than or equal to 2? So even if the CPI comes back as 3, it's like, oh yeah, you're greater than or equal to 2. So I'm gonna do what I know for version 2.
We have to make that optional and then we'll
yeah, the CPI can't require it
at the end. Exactly. It's an optional hash, which if it is called with only two parameters, it will not harm it. And exactly, so then nobody needs to pump the director in that case.
No, I guess Beyhan meant something like so we don't update our director, we update the AWS CPI, for example, which expects the third parameter, which is also used. So because it's used, it's required. And the director being old, it makes a call to the CPI which says, okay, now I have version 3 for create SEMcell, and then the version 3 for create SEMcell would expect a third parameter, but director does not send a third parameter.
Yeah, I think we need to not do that in the CPI. You can't make the CPI assume that it's going to get that. The CPI has to be flexible and be like, oh, did you give me a third parameter? Great, I'm going to use it. I assume that will work. We might run into some problems with the CPI wrappers because they got the Ruby and the Go CPI wrappers that the CPI sort of live within this framework, and make sure those frameworks are fine taking optional arguments. I'm betting that they are.
But anyway, it's good, right? Going through this exercise now because for the API or IPv6 stuff, right? It's good that we already have refreshed this context with this simpler change.
Right. So, okay, so that means we go ahead with trying to pump the version and see how this now develops. But like Yusuf said, then it's a bit trickery if we want to pump it again faster. I don't know. Or
the only problem with bumping it twice is that would be a CPI that's like, I want to do IPv6, but I don't want to do stem cell tagging, and or they don't know that they need to do stem cell tagging. It's not, we don't bump it enough, but that's the only sort of downside of coupling things to the version is that if I want to go from 2 to 4, I have to do 3 also. If there's a feature in 4 I have to do 3, which is that's not a huge downside. It's not a real problem. It's a theoretical problem.
All right. Then we have a decision. Let's try it as an exercise.
So the IPv6 and the tagging, we can also do that for Azure and GCP.
Nice, nice thing is everybody will implement tagging if they want to implement IPv6. That's great.
Right.
great.
But also
Yeah.
they can.
Or at least
Yeah.
they will take the hash and throw it in the trash. They're like, yeah. I totally did something with that.
But at least we don't have to touch the other CPIs, right? We only have to touch the AWS CPI if that's where you want to implement this, right? And then
Exactly.
by the time we go to IPv6, you have to touch everything. Potentially, or the things you
All the
are interested
CPIs you want to do IPv6 with at
Yeah.
least.
Yes. Okay, so this one we discussed. It's basically, well, it's waiting for changes, I assume.
This one needs, I need to look at this one. I'll probably get a chance tomorrow. It seemed great. And then Brian was like, this doesn't work for Windows stem cell. It's like, whoa, hold on, what now? But then the
so
author thinks it
Brian-
does.
Oh, Brian looked at it, but he didn't reject it. He just commented.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually deploy it and validate that it works with Windows stem cells or not. Because I think Brian was like, there's some hard coded string values of Ubuntu in some of the things that the PR is changing.
I see.
Yeah. But in fairness, I don't think the Windows stuff ever ends up in here because there's no Windows heavy stem cells. So this is, if you're using Windows, it's not going to go into the image gallery. So it's probably fine, but I want to actually just spin it up and deploy it and validate that everything's fine.
Okay. We'll wait for that. This is the same, right?
Yes.
The other half.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
the other
yeah,
half. Yeah, so
Yeah, I know I read this Slack, but I do not understand why he's doing this. So
well, this at this point, it's no longer self-contained, right?
yeah, so
It's not a crazy thing. So your blobs, if you don't want the blob, you want to consume blobs from the internet without having a final blob store, you can put external references in your blobs.yaml so that when you Bosch sync blobs, it will download them from the internet rather than from the final blob store. We already got digests in there, so it's not like, worst case is it disappears and then it breaks. And that's what you get for relying on random things on the internet. But it is kind of nice because right now we do, I don't know if we're going to use this, but like it's always kind of annoying where it's like, here's this public asset on the internet. Let me download it and put it in a different spot on the internet for me. It's kind of nice because then you can ensure that it's not going to disappear out from under you. But, if
the
it
whole
is an
idea of the
extra,
blob store was that you have control over where your stuff is instead of relying on random shit from the internet.
yes. Yeah. I'm not saying using this is a great idea, but definitely if you're just developing a small Bosch release, I could see how this could be that you're not intending to cut a final release for. This could be convenient.
Yeah, but because final releases won't work, right? That's the whole point.
Right. Yeah. You're not, this is something that this is like an internal release for you, not like, because like final releases are really for like, hey, internet, this is a thing. And this is for more like, this is a thing that I'm working on for me that I'm not going to publish. And I just got a Git repo. And I don't want to, I could make a script to like download the blobs every time, but I'd rather Bosch take care of it for me. That's really the other solution is you just have a script to download stuff or you ignore your blobs folder, really. Then I guess it only works on one machine. If you want to go to a different one, it doesn't work.
But yeah, but you have still the local file blob store. I use that every time.
But then you got to commit it. And then if you don't have Git LFS enabled on your Git account, you can't put
You
big.
don't have to need Git LFS. You can just do it on. You have a local blob store, which you can just dump shit in a temp folder.
Right. But then when you clone it on a different machine, if you have more than one developer,
Yeah,
But I'm like, I don't see much of a like. At that point, you could just use a dev script that downloads these things from the internet, right? Like,
that is the other use. Yes.
yeah.
You get, I mean, blobs already get ignored. So it's like, yeah, you just have a sync blob script, bin sync blobs of your own that downloads things that you're missing.
So on one side, I think, yeah, okay, nice hack. Probably never going to be documented, and we're probably going to forget about it in a few years.
He is saying it's a proof of concept. So like maybe,
Yeah.
asking like, why not just why don't you just make a dev sync blobs that downloads them into the blobs folder? Because you don't need, you can Bosch add blobs which puts them into the blobs.yaml, but doesn't push them to the blob store. And then as long as those files are on disk, you're fine. So as long as you do that once, commit the blobs.yaml, it's got no blob store ID, but then you have a script that like, if it's not there, downloads it, Bosch is going to be fine. It's like, yeah, this is my blobs.yaml. I know it and it's on disk, so I'm good. That's all Bosch CLI cares about.
Yeah, I'm a bit afraid of the extra code and how it's going to be abused.
Nobody ever abuses features.
No, never.
You don't even need to use a local provider. I guess you could. You could use a local provider.
What crazy stuff they do with the stuff that you're trying to solve with the ERB stuff, what the checks.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, I never thought of that.
We gave you template rendering and you did what with it?
ooh, yes.
What? Oh, Docker's API.
What? It's a great thing. It's the best thing. So apparently, I work with Matt. He's trying to get this going on using Docker CPI on a Mac, on an M1 Mac.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, I know. Like that's like there's a string of bad decisions. Like why start with an M1? But or
This is
an M.
like, this thing here is the first hurdle. And right after that hurdle is a mountain because you don't have ARM64 stem cells. And if you did, nothing on them would work.
No. So it can do nice things with Rosetta. So
Okay.
it can like translate. So you can. This is the whole point. Is you're using AMD.
Oh, I see.
So we're not
You're
passing it.
declaring it.
We're not, because we're not passing it. What's happening?
It's trying
yeah,
to download,
it
it's trying to run
imports
an
this.
ARM one.
Yeah, it imports the stem cell and it assumes it's an ARM one because of but it is set up for multi-arc, and that's why it's not working. So this was just missing.
Okay.
It
What
gets
about
it
when we
further.
have ARM stem cells though,
Yeah, we
Ruben? Then
shouldn't.
this
No,
is
no.
this
Go
hard
away.
coding is problematic.
Yeah. Then we have a lot of other work that needs to happen first. So then probably reverting this is not going to be a big problem. I will reach out and explain how to make ECA-CLA work. We can assign people already.
Is Constantine still working on the ARM stem cells? He was doing.
Oh
that.
yeah, he was doing that at some point, but I think he
Was
got
he?
distracted.
I mean, it's really easy to get distracted when you open up that can of worms. You're like, oh, wait, everything's broken. I didn't know everything was going to be broken.
I have context. I help make this thing.
You
Yeah.
claiming credit for this one line?
Yes. I mean, there was a bit of back and forth to get.
You had to find the line.
I had to find a line. I was
That
like,
is
"Whoa."
normally most of the challenge.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave that open. Aaron wants more linters.
We're shocked.
We're shocked. Oh wait, I thought it was Aaron.
He was on the commit too, I think.
I see.
What is going on?
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, Aaron.
No, Aaron was a reviewer. He assigned himself as a reviewer.
There's no chance none of these commits have Aaron's name on them. Zero chance.
They didn't use the what is it? The Git duet stuff probably, maybe. I don't know. Because there's it's
it
actually
might have just been Rajath. All right.
maybe he spread his obsession with linters. to the
I
rest of the
do like how GitHub was like, you should assign Aaron to this.
team. Outdated docs.
That's impossible.
There are no docs for
Right? How can they be outdated? This is why we don't make docs. ARM templates? I don't know how.
Yeah, but those are not ARM templates and at the ARM architecture. That is something different.
Oh. Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Sensible. Sensible in the docs.
Yeah. I don't know what this pivotal thing is.
Not a thing.
That's a few companies
Wait.
ago.
Hold on. Let me just zip this shit up.
It assigned Benjamin because of docs, right? GitHub is getting really smart. Probably powered by AI at this point. Okay.
Spoken to Benjamin in a while. Is he still alive?
I don't know. Okay, issues. We have issues in the inbox.
I don't know who submitted this first one, but they're a troublemaker.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know. I need to check on that version. You asked the thing.
Yeah, don't use 19. That one existed for all of a day and a half, and it was bad.
I created a local build, so I might not have pulled, so I need to go figure that one out.
I guess this is just to group things together. But,
Yeah, we already discussed this, right? So
yeah.
this is basically
Waiting for contribution.
prioritized, right? It's being worked on.
Yeah.
And it's assigned to Dennis, I would say.
What? Bootloader? Holy shit. Did it change it again? Which Terraform version is he using?
I thought we bundled the Terraform version.
We do, but someone made an PR which was never going to be abused to use their local Terraform.
Was it this person?
Could be.
Because we know that whatever one's bundled works because pipelines aren't red.
Yes, pipelines are green. Works.
I don't understand any of this.
It took me a long time when I did some maintenance on bootloader, going from an ancient Terraform version.
Oh, the last comment seems relevant. Seems like they've discovered that LB type just breaks bubble, which maybe isn't at all related to Terraform.
That's an extra. Yeah, you're using a way newer Terraform version than the.
I'm not convinced they are. I think that they are, and they don't know that Bubble's not using that one.
Could also be. I will take a look at it. Assign me.
Yay!
Yeah. Everyone's like,
We're all waiting for it, just looking at it, staring at it like we're making an effort, and then Ramon says, "I'm doing it." We're all waiting for that. Thanks, Ramon. It's important for traditions to exist.
If it's still problematic in a month, you can just assign it to me, and then it'll disappear.
but I have some time tomorrow. I will check it. Problem with debugging bootloader is that I need to set up a whole freaking environment every time.
Just find a pipeline that runs it and just trigger a job and then kill it real quick.
I saw an update on the DNS stuff. So the CF deployment is now doing, it seems to be working now.
No. Well, unless something changed this morning. It's doing better.
Oh.
There is
Where's that?
only one. There is only one issue. Metrics for container metrics for memory are not available for some reason.
Okay, but that's more for Diego.
Is that?
Yeah,
That's us, right? That's the
unclear. The Go Cigar.
Go Cigar.
It
right?
might be Go Cigar, which is owned by this working group, because it's used by the agent to get memory and disk stats for Bosch instances -s vitals. And then other people found this library and they're like, this looks great. So it could be that Diego uses that. Something I meant to do and haven't yet is to see if the agent will actually spit out correct stats and if Go Cigar is working on Noble. You would think that there'd be a test for that somewhere, but maybe not. I guess we're not running the agent tests under Noble yet, so.
okay. So novel stem cell validation, you can find the issue there if you want. It was the reference to the last reference.
That was this one. This one.
Yes. Yeah, this the
Bottom green one.
below the Bosch DNS one.
Oh, this one. This.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have any context regarding Golsiga, it will be helpful to comment.
It's a repo.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Diego uses it, but I know it's used in more spots than we thought. Including somebody like, who forked this? Like there's a different version of Go Cigar that has way more stars than ours does, or way more forks. It's like used by, I forget. Oh, Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch has the like now canonical Go Cigar. They forked from us, and now everybody uses theirs.
And it didn't even take the time to push something upstream.
Doesn't seem like it.
Oh shit! Here, Guardian. It's using Go Cigar. There it is. Oh, clicked the wrong thing.
I'll try to nerd snipe Kenneth and see if he's willing to look at this. Also just gonna spin up a noble stem cell first and make sure I can get disk and stats from it and prove that, you know, if it doesn't spit out the right things, then it's real easy. Yes, definitely Go Cigar's fault. If it does, then it's kind of like, well,
But
why didn't
here,
this work
look,
for containers?
this is Go Cigar being used in Guardian to get total memory and total disk.
Yeah, but like there could be there's how many layers are there between this and like the CFCLI where it's like this is how much memory and disk I'm using. Like something else could be broken. It would be a real nice.
This is basically this is the thing closest to getting the actual memory
Yeah.
things, right? The other layers are just propagating it, and that didn't change with Noble.
So what if a Noble stem cell though still reports correct stuff via Go Cigar and the agent? Is it then I'm like less confident, but
Yeah. Well, I mean this.
I'm gonna start a Noble deploy right now. I'm gonna see if it's busted.
Oh, I have local changes to the Docker CPI on my machine that are not in the pull request yet. So quick teaser. I'm gonna make it work with. So I have changes to the Docker CPI to make systemd work for jammy stem cells. So so we made some changes to make it work for Noble, but they were Noble only. I made some tweaks to make it work on their jammy as well.
But we don't have a lot of systemd.
But we do internally. So it's the Kubo release where we have that Kubernetes stuff to deploy, and then there's a bunch of things. Actually, Garden also uses systemd, but then they have special logic to make it work on their Bosch Lite.
Oh yeah, that thing.
So. We'll make PRs.
Sounds good.
You needed to do something else to the Docker CPI to make systemd work?
I also mounted the what was it? Lib modules. But that was mostly because the release was also using mod probe to load a kernel module, and the kernel from the host was not matching the kernel from the stem cell, right? So I mean, like, that seems like a sane thing to do, right? Like, why rely on kernel module files in the stem cell if you, I don't know.
None of that makes any sense to me. If it doesn't break anything, it sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, kernel modules like that. Lib modules always has like the kernel version and stuff in the path.
I'm surprised that's not always volume mounted in. Doesn't seem like whatever's on the container is going to be anything useful.
No, that's what I thought. So I think nobody just had used kernel modules in a container yet.
I'm just kind of surprised Docker doesn't always do that, because Docker does some terrible things always that you wouldn't sort of expect.
But I think we're done, right?
There is a promotion, I think.
Oh, it's a promotion? Okay.
We didn't check out promotion.
Share my screen again.
Dashboard.
Lies.
No promotions. Do we also have the opposite, demotions?
Ooh.
What happened? Yeah, we do. If you're inactive for a long time, you get removed.
I don't know why this doesn't appear.
I don't know who set this up, this whole promotions thing.
Okay, I paste it into the chat. What is missing? I know what is missing, the project. Okay, I forgot that one. Okay, I updated the project, but
I'm confused. Felix isn't an approver?
yeah, looks like.
I mean, that seems appropriate. I mean, well, that's quite a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah, I realized in the morning when we wanted to talk about one topic. You cannot see the pipelines? How come?
Oh. Wait, you can't see the pipelines?
I mean, you need to be an approver for that, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I
need to
think
be
so.
well, you need to be an approver to see the logs of the pipelines and have the ability to.
Oh.
No,
Yeah.
also in the past,
Yeah.
I was only able to see 3 of them, I think.
Yeah,
The
there's a few public ones, and there's the rest.
Yeah, we might not have just because there were so few reviewers, we might have not set up concourse well.
But then it makes it more worthwhile to go for that approver status.
That's
right?
true.
Like it's a real reward. You now again look at all the red pipelines
Yeah.
and are made responsible for it.
You now get to see them all blinking.
Also add them to the Bosch private channel.
Bad news. Bad news. Noble stem cells totally have CPU, memory, and disk statistics just fine.
It would be weird if it did not provide it, because then the test would fail. I think there was a test where we checked the.
Actually, ephemeral disk usage is 0%, but everything else is fine. That's weird.
Okay. Take care, all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.